Hello.
Good evening.
Gene. All right. It looks like the gang's all here. It is 6:31 on December 18th, 2024, and the Nahant Board of Selectmen meeting is now in session. We have some announcements to start the meeting as usual. I'll handle those. The annual Christmas parade is Saturday, December 21st, 2024, starting at 6 p.m. from the Nahant Village Church. Winter parking ban is in effect from December 21st to March 20th, 2025, from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. So midnight to 6. So the ban applies. No vehicles on the street during this time, regardless of the snow parking ban. Visit the Nahant Police Department if you need a winter parking sticker.
Excuse me for 1 minute there. Tony, we talked about this at the last meeting, and you were going to look into, you and Zach, I think it was, we're going to look into blue lights that would shine or blink on during snowstorms or emergencies.
Yes, so we reached out to Caviello to get a quote. They responded to us this morning. And I haven't had time today to like really go through it though, to be honest. So let me I'll review that and update you guys after taking a look at it.
So now does everything else stay the same until then, where we would allow parking unless it's a snow emergency?
Right, we'll stick with the normal policy for now. If we have the ability to fund the installation of the blue lights, then in the current fiscal year, then we could consider changing the policy once that's installed.
Right.
But if we don't, then we would, try to factor it into the budget. And if it gets approved at town meeting, we could, start it next year.
Okay, thanks.
Unless I'm mistaken, there's no parking on the street from midnight to 6 a.m. period between December 21st and March 20th, correct?
Correct. That's the current policy.
Yep. Okay. Nahant Town, continuing the announcements. Nahant Town Hall will be closed on Tuesday, December 24th, and Wednesday, December 25th, and Wednesday, January 1st, 2025, in observance of the Christmas and New Year's holidays. The annual Freezing for a Reason Polar Plunge will be on Wednesday, January 1st, 2025, starting at 11 a.m. at Short Beach. And here's the controversial one. Trash and recycling pickup during the holidays. There will be no delay in trash/recycling curbside pickup the week of Christmas and the week of New Year's holiday. Put barrels out by 7 a.m. on the day of your regular trash pickup. Now, I got a robocall from Waste Management today saying there was a 1-day delay.
Really?
Anybody hear about this?
No.
Okay. I will, Tony, I believe I have it still. I'll play it for you tomorrow and just make sure there isn't a mistake, because hopefully not a lot of people got that message, but I definitely got that message. How about any robocall at all? You want to get a robocall? No? Okay, so all right, so I'll check in with you tomorrow morning, Tony, on that one, all right?
Yes, please. That's what we were told, that there was no delay. So
okay, hopefully I didn't misunderstand the message, but I don't think I deleted it. So I'll take another listen, and if I've set off a false alarm, I'll let you know.
Okay.
So let's see. That is it for announcements. Gene or Rob or Tony, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I have nothing.
All set here, Josh.
All right, well. I I will say, so tonight is the last scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting of the year, so. I'd like to give a short Nahant State of the Town address. Very short, I hope. Nahant has had a very good year, and there are so many people that have chipped in and helped our community. Some whose names you might recognize, some you might not even know. So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge all the folks that, pulled together and collaborated in constructive ways, and thank them all for their contributions, whether they're big or small, or whether just having a positive attitude. This is what community is all about. Working together, persevering through challenges, and keep trying to improve our beloved little town of Nahant. So thank you all, and we had a good year this year, and I'm quite confident 2025 is going to be even better.
Thank you.
Well said, Josh.
Thanks. All right, so new business, we have a number of annual licenses to approve. Anyone want to make a motion on that? It's a long one. So maybe we can.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Nahant
Go ahead, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Nahant Board of Selectmen vote to approve the following liquor license renewal applications for calendar year 2025 to be approved by the ABCC. Nahant Tennis Incorporated, 280 Nahant Road, club license, all alcoholic beverages. Nahant Knights of Columbus Building Association Incorporated, 17 Relay Yard, club license, all alcoholic beverages. R&B Management, LLC, 1 Willow Road, restaurant license, all alcoholic beverages. Atlantic Functions Incorporated, DBA Ocean View, 0 Willow Road, general on-premises license, all alcoholic beverages. Seaside Variety Corporation, DBA Seaside Variety, 141 Nahant Road, package store license, all alcoholic beverages. Tides Nahant Incorporated, 2B Wilson Road, restaurant license, all alcoholic beverages. Victoria Hall Bayside, LLC, DBA Victoria Hall Bayside, 1 Southwick Avenue, restaurant license, all alcoholic beverages. Turnstone LLC, DBA Turnstone Market, 157 Nahant Road, convenience store license, wines and malt. Nahant Veterans Association, 96 Nahant Road, club license, all alcoholic beverages. And further, that the release of said licenses are subject to the approval of all inspections, payment of all outstanding fees, fines, and payments to the town of Nahant, and all documents required by the ABCC have been submitted and authorized the town administrator to sign the licensing authority certification form.
Seconded.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to discuss something, unless it's coming up in another agenda item, and that is the Victoria Hall Bayside. We've had a number of issues with Victoria Bayside. Excuse me. A little bit of a cold here. And it's been on several different occasions. And generally speaking, it's a parking issue and it's a loudness issue. And I, over the last couple of weeks, have had 3 phone calls. And I know that some of you have also had the same phone calls. And I noticed, I read on Facebook where Jim McCarthy, I hope it's okay to use her name, was also a complainant as to how the business is conducted there. I'd like to get a little input on this, Tony, if we could, as to how we treat this.
Sure. Well, we're already in the process of treating it. After some complaints came in a few weeks ago, aligned with the timing that you just described, I met with the property owners and the business owner and the manager of the hall to talk through a lot of those issues. And, you know, the complaints that we received, I would say, you know, were centralized on noise and parking and traffic. The traffic and the parking issues are, you know, somewhat easier to identify and to solve. The noise issues are somewhat of another category, but we're working on those too. The Bayside owners and the business owners of Victoria Hall were understanding, you know, of the issues that have been raised and are being cooperative on trying to find ways to, you know, improve their presence in the neighborhood. They've agreed to, they've already started employing a parking attendant to be in the lot when guests arrive and depart the events. They've added a max number of vehicles based on the parking spaces available to the contract that they sign with their guests. They're looking into signage that they can bring out and pull in, you know, during events to help show people which way they need to go. They're adding a map to their website so that their guests can share that information with their guests when they invite people to an event. And in the last 2 weekends since I've met with them, that seems to be on the right track. Seems like that those solutions are already, you know, working positively. On the noise side, they've on noise and activity surveillance, they've installed cameras inside and outside of the building, and they're also looking at installing a noise monitoring device as well. So they're being cooperative. I think we're going to keep working with them, and they're looking to work with the neighbors to, you know, so that they can continue to run the business in a positive way without, you know, negatively impacting the neighborhood.
What is a noise sensor?
It measures the decibel level of the sound.
It doesn't sound like something that would be necessary to any club, but I'm just wondering if it isn't some measure or means of making this go a lot easier and friendlier.
Well, yeah, so that's kind of, it's hard, you know, obviously they're allowed to have music in the building.
Right.
When the doors open, that sound obviously carries. If doors are left open, that sound carries. So we talked a little bit about that to try to keep the doors closed as much as possible and making sure that they keep an eye on that. But there's also, you know, vibration from the sound equipment that carries, and, you know, we've seen some videos from neighbors of what the sound is like. But we've also had some complaints come in, and our police department, you know, has arrived on scene and, you know, listened for themselves and didn't feel like it was, you know, at a level that needed adjusting. So from our standpoint, it's somewhat hard to gauge, but the point of it is that the neighbors have made us aware of it. We've made Bayside aware of it, and we're having, you know, ongoing conversations about how to you know, better that situation.
And I think that, you know, the Bayside has made, you know, measurable changes, detectable changes to try to improve the situation, having the parking lot attendant, the extra police detail, I think. So those are non-subjective. And the noise is a bit, you could call it subjective. In other words, what's too loud for one person is not necessarily too loud for somebody else. So that's the benefit of the noise monitor. So you have the data for for what that's worth. And I think this is exactly the kind of situation I was just referring to, where we have a problem and we just keep trying to work it out, keep collaborating together, and finding a solution that works. And in this case, it's between the Bayside and the neighbors, and we just have to keep working at it until we get to a point that's works for everybody.
For this parking situation, if they're willing to hire a full-time parking lot attendant, could we make use of the police department to be the valets for that particular function? Have a
No.
detail?
No, we can't do that, but they have a detail on site for their events. But the detail officer, can't be in two places at once. Sometimes they have to be inside the building during, the end, when an event ends, helping people, making sure people get out in an orderly fashion, things like that. And then,
That's what I'm
there might be
saying.
noise outside. So I think the parking attendant seems to be working, the way that they're doing over the first couple weeks here.
I guess I'll add too that we have the Board of Selectmen, TA, police chief, fire chief have all received emails of concern about both the parking and the noise, and that's good. Please keep us informed, but it's also important, if there's an issue that you think is a real problem, call the police real time, because that's what they're there for, to handle these situations. It's a lot easier to handle things real time than sort out what happened after the fact. So please go ahead and email or call, whatever you need to do, but call the police real time.
And this isn't completely new to the town. We've dealt with issues like this at Ocean View, parking and sound, and Kelly Greens, and probably the country club at some point too. And the town's always been able to work closely with the owners of the property or the business, and they've always been able to engage the neighbors. And so we've always been able to come up with a solution that works for everybody. And I think right now you have yet again an owner of a business that's willing to do that. So that's a good sign, and they've already started doing some of those things that are showing improvement.
Are we meeting with these people?
I've met with the owners of the property and the owner of the business.
See, Miss Santos has joined us, so thanks I'm glad you're here to be able to hear this conversation too. I know you take the time to be with Tony, both Chief Furlong and Chief Antrim, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, and they're having a neighborhood get together this week or next week, and then I know that they were planning on doing another one after the new year as well.
Should we put off this license approval for a week or 2 weeks, or our next meeting, until we have some idea of how they're going to react or perform?
Well, I don't think we have any grounds at this time to not reissue the license. Their existing license, like everyone else on this list, expires at the end of the calendar year. So this is our last meeting before the end of the calendar year, so we have to take it up now. We always have the ability to revisit it if we are having an issue. But I don't see that being, I don't think that's in the future. I think we have parties that are being cooperative and heading in the right direction.
All right,
I tend to agree, Gene. I thought about the same thing, to be honest. But, thinking about the discrete steps that, the management has taken, I think it has improved, certainly the parking, which was, maybe the main issue a couple months ago when we had a complaint.
Right.
Made a lot of progress on that, so, I agree, we're not really there. As long as we're getting complaints, we're not all the way there, but I feel like, steps have been made, so, it would be my preference to approve the license tonight, with the understanding that, we need to continue to work the issue, and, that we do have the option of withdrawing that license if we don't see improvement. But I'm pretty confident we will.
all right.
Any more discussion on this motion? Hearing and seeing none, roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Rob Tibble, aye.
Jennifer, aye. All right, similarly, we have entertainment licenses.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve an entertainment license for calendar year 2025 to the following establishments. Nahant Knights of Columbus, 17 relay yard, 5 TVs, 5 musicians, DJ and pool table, jukebox. New Country Club Incorporated, 280 Nahant Road, TV, live music, DJ. Atlantic Functions Incorporated, DBA Ocean View, 0 Willow Road, live music, DJ. R&B Management LLC, 1 Willow Road, live music, DJ, jukebox, and karaoke. Tides Nahant, 2B Wilson Road, 10 TVs, 2 amusement devices, live music, and karaoke. Victoria Hall Bayside LLC, DBA Victoria Hall Bayside, 1 Southwick Avenue, live music, DJ, jukebox, live band, TV, and radio. And further, that the release of said licenses is subject to the approval of all inspections and payment of all outstanding fees, fines, and payments to the town of Nahant, and authorize the town administrator to sign the licensing authority certification form.
Seconded.
It's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Rob Tibble, aye.
Aye. Okay. Common vic license. Any motion on that? Rob, you getting tired? You want me to take this one?
I'm okay, Josh. I can hold on. Yeah, I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve a common victualler license as stands alone or in connection with a liquor license for calendar year 2025 to the following establishments. Atlantic Functions Incorporated, DBA Ocean View, 0 Willow Road. Tides Nahant, 2B Wilson Road. New Country Club Incorporated, 280 Nahant Road. R&B Management, LLC, 1 Willow Road. Nahant Knights of Columbus Building Association, DBA Nahant Knights of Columbus, 17 Relay Yard. Victoria Hall Bayside, LLC, DBA Victoria Hall Bayside, 1 Southwick Avenue. Seaside Pizza, 149 Nahant Road. Nahant Preservation Trust, NLSS, 96 Nahant Road, and further that the release of said licenses are subject to the approval of all inspections and payment of all outstanding fees, fines, and payments to the town of Nahant, and authorize the town administrator to sign the licensing authority certification form.
Seconded.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? We did get a memo from the building inspector that said inspections had been performed and no issues found. Any other discussion on this? Hearing and seeing none, roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Rob Tibble, aye.
Josh Efron, aye.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve a used car dealer license Class 2 for calendar year 2025 to the following: George Mastoris, DBA Seaside Auto, Francis Burrill, DBA Nahant Garage, and further that the release of said licenses are subject to the approval of all inspections and payments of all outstanding fees, fines, and payments to the town of Nahant, and authorize the town administrator to sign the licensing authority certification form.
Second,
Okay, any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Rob Tibble, aye.
Josh Everman. Okay, vote to create Nahant Fire Department donation fund.
Mr. Chairman, I move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the Nahant Fire Department donation fund.
Second,
Okay, discussion. I think Chief Antrim is on the call. Chief, would you like to chime in? Unmute yourself. Here it is.
Yes, thank you. You guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, this sort of came out of the blue. A gentleman came into the station last week and offered us a check. And I had a few conversations with him and then with Tony and Allison. So this all stems from a fire that occurred in Peabody in 2016, I believe July 2016. The building was owned by the gentleman who's donating these funds to us. It had been leased by a company that recycled styrofoam. There were some issues, it caught on fire, was declared a hazardous materials incident. I think as part of that and the ensuing insurance claims and lawsuit, the departments had been asked to come up with a figure of, what their personnel and equipment costs were related to the incident. I think Nahant spent over 24 hours over there assisting covering Peabody. So it's a very specific number. He is donating a check in the amount of $6,948.17. And Allison thought that a creation of a donation account would be the sort of best way for the funds to be able to be utilized by us in this fiscal year. And we certainly have some needs what we could apply that money to. So that's the backstory. Most of my information comes from the gentleman himself. His name is Dave Harrison. And, he had no obligation to actually pay this. He just, he's a firefighter also in Maine. And, he said he wanted to make good on his word that he would compensate all the departments that participated in putting out that fire. So.
Well, that's great that this gentleman made that donation, Austin. And as I understand it, if we create this fund, this allows those funds to go to the fire department as the donor intended, as opposed to into the general fund, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And the same thing is used in other instances, Tony, where someone wants to donate to, for example, the library or some other specific thing. It's the same process we use there.
Right, library, council on aging, a number of other departments have gift accounts, donation accounts in the same fashion.
That sounds great to me. Any discussion? Gene, Rob?
no, I have none.
I think it's an incredible gesture. I've never even heard of this before. So congratulations, and I'm sure this will be used in the best possible way to help protect the town of Nahant.
Yes, thank you. I should thank former Chief Feinberg. He's the one who was involved in this. I had no involvement in this incident at all. But yeah, it was a very welcome surprise. So.
Yeah.
How many departments get involved in that?
It depends on how many alarms the fire went to. I don't know the details. For us to have gone there, it was probably at least a 5-alarm fire, which is about
Well,
half as big as they get.
if I can ask, what creates an alarm?
It's part of the mutual aid structure. So each additional alarm that you add brings a predetermined set of resources to the community from other communities. So typically it's 2 engines and a ladder truck, or 2 engines. They sort of every other alarm will bring on an additional ladder truck, and every alarm brings 2 additional engines.
Thanks, Chief.
You'll
Yeah, so that sounds great. Austin, you talk to the donor again, just thank him to the town as well as fire department.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Rob Tibble, aye.
Josh Enfield, aye. Next on the agenda is some ongoing business. We'll talk about the ADU, which is the accessory dwelling unit law update. The state recently published draft regulations, which we got last week, I think. We've been looking forward to seeing these and kind of postpone our efforts to address the zoning issues related to ADUs until we saw these, and now we have them. And with that, let's see, Tony, do you want to talk about this or do we have?
Yeah.
Thank you. No.
Well, so ADU, we've been talking about ADUs for quite some time now. They were featured as part of the process of the housing production plan. It was a law that was passed in August of 24, and it goes into effect February 2nd of 2025. For those that don't know, an accessory dwelling unit is a secondary residential living space located on the same lot of a single-family home. Our current zoning, I believe, speaks to accessory buildings, but those are not habitable space. These are accessory dwelling units. So currently, we don't have, I don't believe ours, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe our current zoning bylaws speak to accessory dwelling units at all.
That's correct.
That's not the same for every town. Some towns have had accessory dwelling units in their zoning in the past. However, the new law will require them to update that in accordance with the new regs that will eventually be finalized. And anything that is in your local zoning or that is not in compliance with the local law, with the state law, will not be enforceable after February 2nd. So in most towns, accessory dwelling units, or I shouldn't say most, but many times in municipalities, accessory dwelling units are allowed in single-family zones, but you have to get a special permit in order to build. What this law does is says they are, for particular accessory dwelling units, they're allowed as of right. And they define it as a maximum size of an ADU is no more than half the gross floor area ratio of the primary structure or the principal dwelling, or 900 square feet, whichever is less. They can be detached, they can be attached, they can be interior upper level units, garage conversions, additions on top of a garage, or even interior lower level units. So when the law when the legislation was signed into law with a February 2nd date, EOHLC, Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, was put on task to create regulations. The draft regulations were released December 6th. Prior to that, the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board discussed how to approach the new law. The Planning Board took the first, I guess, swing at it and drafted an article that would just, I'll simplify it, but added the definition from the state law of accessory dwelling unit into our zoning, and spoke to the ability for towns to reasonably regulate ADUs. That was sent to the Board of Selectmen probably, I'd say probably about a month ago. Shortly thereafter, in speaking with legal counsel, we learned about the regulations that EOHLC were drafting and soon to be released. So we decided, let's wait and see. And I think many other communities are doing the same thing, is let's see what those regulations say, so that we're not publishing a draft article that needs to be changed according to the final regs. So right now, what are the steps that we're undertaking now is reviewing the regulations that were released. And the comment period starts on December 20th and goes until January 10th. And to comment on the regulations, you have to do it through an online form on the state website. We've created a page on nahant.org under community topics. It's titled accessory dwelling units with some information there and helpful links. And we would encourage that residents, read through the regs. It's mostly definitions. It's only about 6 pages, 7 pages long. Read through it. And if you have questions or comments or even ideas of how to handle particular issues, submit those formally through the online form on the state's website, which you can get that link right from our page on nahant.org. We'll be doing the same. Yeah, go ahead, Gene.
Is that mass.gov .adu?
It is,
/ADU.
yeah, /ADU, mass.gov/ADU.
Thanks. Thank you.
So we're working with town council. We're also KP Law, who represents, a number of municipalities throughout the Commonwealth, is also working on this. So our next step is to review the regs and submit comments. Some of the things that are on our radar are related to parking regulations, the parking regulations related to proximity to bus station. There's also reporting requirements that are pretty onerous, and a number of other things that we're looking at. So they plan on, the comment period ends January 10th. Their plan is to release their final regulations right before February 2nd. At that point, hopefully we'll have a model bylaw or a baseline bylaw that maybe we just have to tweak a little bit once those regs are finalized so that it's in compliance. And then we'll be working with the planning board on the drafting of that article. And whether, the planning board sends it to us and then we send it back to them for a hearing, or if we just send them an article and then it goes into the hearing process. We still have to, work out those details with the planning board on which, what avenue we want to take. But I guess, the stressful part of it is it's very short time frame from February, especially if the planning board wants to have their report included in the finance committee book, which gets mailed out to every resident before town meeting. That means they have to have we have to have an article, we have to have a hearing, they have to draft their report, in a very short period of time from February to mid-April. So just, almost just about a month and a half. And that's a quick turnaround. So we have a lot of work to do. We're trying to do, get ahead of it as much as we can. But like I said, there's still a lot of there's still a lot of variables because the regs are in draft form.
Yeah, I guess I'll just add, so just summarizing a little bit, so the ADU law, basically from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts says, that ADUs are allowed by law, and the town cannot prohibit them. And the recent, regs that came out, as Tony said, I'd call it the majority of it is just definitions, and then the rest is, I would characterize as saying you can't make it too hard for people to build an ADU. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. Per Massachusetts law, ADUs are allowed in single family zoning, and the towns are not allowed to make it onerous to do that. And there will be an article on town meeting regarding ADUs.
So if you go to nahant.org and if you want me, I can just share my screen to show people where to go. If you go to nahant.org under community topics, it's the top one. It's the top one. Accessory dwelling units, ADUs. Bring you to this page. There's some information here. This link brings you to that mass.gov/ADU page. The draft regs are at the bottom here. There was a letter from Secretary Augustus that came out with the draft regs. If you click on this link, it's a slideshow from a previous webinar on November 4th. You can go through, and then here's the link to complete, submit comments. This link, if you click on this link, it's going to say it's not open to submissions yet because it doesn't open until the 20th.
Would you mind clicking on the draft regulations thing and just sort of, maybe you can show the definition of what an ADU is?
Yeah, the webinar is pretty helpful too.
Yeah.
You know, if you scroll through this, but if here's the regs here. So it has a purpose and then the definitions. Here's the ADU definition. A self-contained housing unit inclusive of sleeping, cooking, and sanitary facilities on the same lot as a principal dwelling, subject to otherwise applicable dimensional and parking requirements that one maintains a separate entrance either directly from the outside or through an entry hall or corridor shared with the principal dwelling sufficient to meet the requirements of the state building code for safe egress. Two is not larger in gross floor area than half the gross floor area of the principal dwelling or 900 square feet, whichever is smaller. And three is subject to such additional restrictions as may be imposed by a municipality, including but not limited to additional size restrictions and restrictions or prohibitions on short-term rental, provided, however, that no municipality should unreasonably restrict the creation of rental of an ADU that is not a short-term rental. The gist of the webinar that I sat through was that, you know, generally speaking, any rules and regulations that we consider for the ADUs have to essentially mirror whatever existing rules and regulations we have for single family dwellings in the single family zone. So if we don't require a site plan review for a single family home, we can't require site plan review for an ADU, that type of thing.
Tony, I don't know if I missed it, but is owner occupancy required?
It is not.
Huh?
Yeah, it is not required.
So.
And
yeah,
we
so-
can't require it either.
Yeah, it's specifically
Exactly,
stated.
right, so it's anybody, so. You know, that's, you know, sometimes people think of, you know, ADUs as, oh, it's, you know, something for my kids or it's something for my elderly parents, but, not for this definition.
This is a rental home.
It's a rental unit, it's.
So is this gonna confuse short-term rentals?
Well, we have the ability to, the law allows municipalities to prohibit ADUs for the use of short-term rentals.
One of
So
the things
that's,
they prohibit,
that's something that we could
allow you to
include.
prohibit, I'm sorry. I interrupted.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying that that's one of the few things that the state regs allow you to prohibit is you are allowed to prohibit the use of ADUs for short-term rental. If we so choose. If the town's voters so choose.
So, that's definitely one of the topics that, I think it's gonna be, something that is commented on a lot. The other things that came up in the webinars that I thought was interesting, was the lack of language in here about condoization, and how that factors in with the law, because it seems to be clearly for, or the intent of the law was clearly to allow single-family homeowners to build an ADU for rental property. But there's not much in here about, whether a town can restrict it for rental only versus, prohibiting it from being condoized, which is obviously a whole nother, major issue, I think, that we're gonna want to explore and that we're gonna be talking about with council. The other things that came to mind for me, like I said, about parking is obviously an issue for us, but it seems like we may be able, based on our proximity to the bus station, we may be able to require one off-street parking spot for every ADU, but we still need to get some clarity on that. And, there was to be honest, it's kind of like there was a lack of conversation in the webinar about how town, it's mostly about the regulations, and the webinars are mostly about how towns aren't allowed to make it difficult for ADUs to be built, and less about how are towns going to assess these properties potentially differently, how towns are going to handle the increased demand on utilities, the increased demand on, National Grid's electric supply. So those are other things that are kind of missing in the conversation right now from my perspective that I'd like to include in the comments.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Tony, that you made this earlier today to me about, we're doing all this infrastructure improvement, and it's all based on the current number of housing units, so it's something that needs some.
It almost seems like they're making a more restrictive zoning less restrictive.
Yeah, I mean, it's stated in there, the goal here is, to create additional housing to help ease the housing crunch in Massachusetts. That's I think a stated goal in the.
Can we, or should we, if we can, set up some sort of a site where people can read through this proposed regulation and offer their comments for us to review and possibly incorporate into our own thinking as we develop these these final bylaws?
I can add to the website. We have like a general email that is, it's Hold on one second here, let me find it. So residents@nahant.org. So what I could do is I could add that to the bottom of that page and just say, please share your questions or comments by email, to the Board of Selectmen by emailing us your comments as well as submitting them to the state.
I'd like that. I don't know how others feel about it, but I think it's not too early to start getting input on what's been submitted thus far.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion, Rob. I mean, it's the voters of the hunt that have to vote on this come town meeting, so any input that can be provided, as we try to craft the regulations along with the planning board, would be helpful. Better than operating in a vacuum. Right?
Indeed.
All right, anything else on ADUs?
No, that's all I have for now.
All right, short-term rental update.
Short-term rental update. So we have a meeting with Cloud Permit, I believe this week, right, Dan? And then to work on the development of the online portal for application. We have a draft application. Oh, is that blurred? Yeah. We have a draft application prepared, but still have some work to do on this, and we're also going to be adding this to the website. So our goal is to have this uploaded before the end of the year, at least to have a starting point for those who are looking to get licensed with the town. But as you guys know, we signed a contract with Cloud Permit, so all of this will be done online, electronically in the future, but I don't know if that's going to be ready for January 1st. So in the meantime, we're going to have a fillable form application available to get the process started.
That's good.
So
So
hopefully that'll be up before the end of the year.
yep, it'll be good for sure. We want to make sure everyone that needs and meets it is required to register their short-term rental, has that ability, so paper option is good until the Cloud Permit.
Are we getting many inquiries on that?
Yeah, we've had a few. We've had a few where, folks, owners of owner occupied or owner adjacent properties are looking to start the process, and so that's a good sign. They're aware that they have to get licensed, and they're knocking on our door saying, how do I apply? How do I get this right? So we're that adds to the reasons why we want to get it up onto the website sooner than later.
Great.
Tony, I can imagine the possibility that some of the short-term rental operators are more active in winter than others. Thinking that maybe though they might be, if they're actively renting now, they might be moved to the top of the list as far as getting this process completed, as opposed to somebody who's basically holding off until summer. Just a thought.
If we get like a major influx of applications, that's definitely a good way to do it.
Okay.
I don't know what to expect yet.
Yeah. Just kind of in the back of my mind and sharing it with you.
Right. Anything else on short-term rentals? Right. Lead water service lines.
Okay, so all communities are, I think we talked a little bit about this at the last meeting. All communities are now required to produce a lead water service line inventory. we were required to submit our inventory to DEP in October. And our final submission is November of 2027. Between now and then, the town's effort is to finally tweak that inventory list. So for the town of Nahant, we had, well, let me step back. Your water service line is separated into kind of two categories, from the water main in the street to the shutoff valve, and then from the shutoff valve to your property. Technically, in the property owner owns the service line from the valve to their house, where the town owns the service line from the main to the valve. First step is to figure out, is there lead service lines in our community? So what we're looking at is in Dan, you might know this off the top of your head, but it was early 1980s where, lead service lines were outlawed. So one of our first steps is looking at property cards to figure out when homes were built. If they were built after that date, then you know that their service line doesn't contain lead. We're also looking at our utility tie cards, which describe where the service line is located on the street, what material it is, what size the service line is. And we have, even though they were, hand drawn from probably the 50s or 60s, we have an excellent collection of tie cards available to us with great information on them, except for in a classic Nahant way. The way they're described is it will say the last name of the homeowner and the street address, but it doesn't say the house number.
Yeah, the street, but not the number of the street.
Right. Because in Nahant, obviously, everybody knew, you could say John Smith, Fox Hill Road, and everyone knew it was house number 15, which is, it's pretty interesting going back through all that information. So what we're doing is so in those scenarios, a lot of those are technically under DEP's guidance have to be categorized as unknown. Even though we know it's not lead, we can't identify it to a particular house. So we're looking through real estate records to identify the house number. And we've gone through, Owen, our intern, has actually been working on this project and doing a great job at it, working with Sheila in the assessor's office and KK in the inspectional services office to identify those house addresses. So he's probably 3/4 of the way through the process. We should have that updated by the end of the year. And so the other requirement is to send a letter out to all those that are unknown or known to have lead. DEP requires certain language on those letters, and what we want to do is get that inventory updated so that we can send out letters that are as accurate to our inventory as possible. Because I think getting an unknown can be scary, but even though we know it's not lead, we just can't say it's your service line, if that makes sense. So we're working on figuring that end out, and should be sending letters out in the coming weeks. And we'll do some advanced communication before we send those letters out, so that people understand what they're receiving in the mail. In an additional layer to this project is, as we've talked about a number of times, is replacing the water meters in town. Part of our plan for when we do that project, part of the scope of work for the installation of the new meter will be to also evaluate the service line coming into the home. So if we have an unknown from the valve to the house, because it was built prior to lead service lines were outlawed in the early 80s, when we go to install the meter, we can test the service line and figure out what the material is. And we want to do all that before that 2027 deadline, because once that deadline hits, whatever your inventory is, you're likely the state, from the federal government down to the state to the municipality, they're going to force us to replace 10% of our unknowns on an annual basis. So even if we go to find out after the fact that it wasn't lead and it doesn't need replacement, we still have to do 10% of that number. So it could, the more we can do up front to identify where lead is or isn't located, the less of a demand that will be in 2027, 2028.
That could be a very big ticket item. That's, we've placed a lot of water lines recently, and it's an expensive proposition. So I applaud you and the team, doing all this stuff now so that we don't get stuck with major bill down the line, as well as, of course, ensuring all our residents have healthy water.
Yeah, I'm fairly confident that we don't have a lot of lead service lines in the town. But we just are figuring out how we prove that through the inventory process. So that's the update on there. I just wanted to put it on the agenda because I think in other communities, when they receive that letter, there's a lot of confusion and concern because it is kind of alarming, when you read the letter and the language that DEP requires you to put in it. So I want to kind of get out here ahead of it, make sure people understand kind of the process that we're going through. We'll do more communication before we send out those letters.
Good. All right, looks like you're still on the hot seat, Tony. Next on the agenda is Coast Guard housing sales.
Coast Guard housing sales update. We have closed on the last 2 properties. So for the 5 properties that were bid on with qualifying bids, all 5 of them have sold. So we've rescinded our request for special legislation to extend the loan. We have enough funds to pay off that loan in early January. And we have some additional funds as well that can go towards the next debt payment of the 1.3 for the demo and the prep work related to the sale. So I want to thank the board, thank the finance committee, of course, thank Lisa Scortis, our listing agent, for all the work that she's been doing to help us get the word out. And we'll be meeting shortly after the new year to to work on the next RFP, which will include the remaining lots that are vacated. So all the even lots except for lot 12 and including also lot 5, which failed to receive a qualifying bid in this first round. And so our hope, we've pushed it off a little bit to early February because of interest rate adjustments and holiday distractions. And, there's a lot of work for people to get their finances in line, to submit competitive offers. So we'll be hoping to get the next RFP into the central register early to mid-January for bid openings to start early to mid-February.
Well, congratulations, that sums up to about $2.4 million, from the sale of those 5 properties. Paying off that $1.866 million loan, the huge relief for the town of Nahant. Been a long time coming, 20 years to be exact. So, well done. You and the team, and thanks again to Lisa Scortis for her help. And I think we should thank the several other local real estate agents, gave you a lot of good advice through this whole process. And again, it's exactly the kind of collaborative efforts that help this town succeed. So great job.
Thank you.
Let me say that it's been fascinating for me to watch the process. This project came with such a huge learning curve right from day one. And you've Tony has talked to an amazing number of experts throughout the process to make sure that the town was both protected legally and also the town could benefit from the best possible price for these lots. Again, I'm very impressed with how it's gone, and I'm absolutely thrilled that we're over the hump as far as that loan.
I will say, well done, touche.
Yeah, and it was an issue that seems like, well, what's the problem? Just sell the properties. It was not simple. It came with a lot of challenges. We're still working through some of those challenges, in fact. And it's all about perseverance. We received some criticism along the way, and but we just kept working at it, and we'll keep working at it. That's the name of the game here.
Yeah, there was definitely some sleepless nights throughout that process, but it wasn't always smooth. But where we are right now, we're happy and looking forward to getting to the next part of the process, and have some hopeful and encouraging prospects for the next round. So we'll see how it goes in the spring.
Yep. It's good. And we're still up. Town administrator report.
Okay, quickly, I'll just get to one quick update on the pump station project. We're at 61% complete. Our electricity and gas is hooked up to the building. Exterior siding is mostly completed. The west side of the roof will be completed by Monday. The east side of the roof from Nahant, you can see from Nahant Road, is complete. Currently, they are installing electrical conduit in the interior and lighting, and some painting. RW Gate came out earlier this week and met with Zach and the DPW for about an hour to show them how the new gate valves and different mechanisms in the building work. And then January 6th, they'll start, there's a section of the force main from the pump station to basically the property line that needs to be worked on. So that will start January 6th and probably take about 2 or 3 weeks. So moving right along there, we're in pretty good shape. The paving update from the paving work, we got Little Nahant is done, Emerald Road is done, Upper Fox Hill Road is done, and Ward Road is done. Unfortunately, Lower Fox Hill Road and Castle Road trench work is going to have to be put on hold until the spring because the hot top plants are cease in production, and it's always weather dependent. So because it's gotten so cold pretty quickly here, unfortunately that part's gonna have to wait till the spring. But most of the work is completed and it came out really well, so we're happy with that. I also just wanted to say we are working, on our stormwater system evaluation process for White Way, Willow Road, Emerald Road, Bass Point Road. And we've completed almost like probably 90% of the inspections there. The next phase of the project is to get a proposal from our engineer on design and work with that within the budget to see what we could include in, the first element of a construction project. But we found, through that inspection, we found areas of stormwater pipe that are collapsed, that are disjointed, that need to be, replaced or relined, pretty bittersweet information because, you're identifying a problem, but on the sweet side, we know that those issues are probably the, major source of some of the stormwater issues we're having in those areas. So now that we know where those problems exist, we can work on a project plan, a capital plan to make the replacements and improve the drainage in those areas.
Interesting, all this, the things problems that found, as you mentioned, that collapsed pipe and undersized pipes. And, I wonder, looking forward, whether we could make a plan to do these camera inspections on a certain interval, right? And it might turn out to be cost effective to do it that way. The time you spend, fighting a flood or something like that, and then to find out later, oh, we had a collapsed drain pipe here. I don't know.
Well,
Talk about that, see if it's something that consider preventing this type of thing.
and to that point, in order to camera these pipes, you have to jet them and clean them, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's not a
So
thing either.
that in and of itself, helps the system just getting the debris out.
Yeah.
So something along those lines, I think that makes sense. We're in the internally here at the town hall, and across the board, we're into the budget cycle, getting ready for next year's town meeting. Just so you know, we've reached out, we've provided all of our request forms and budget spreadsheets, worksheets to our department heads. They'll be submitting those in the next couple of weeks. We'll have department head meetings with Allison and I over the early weeks of January, so that we can start putting together our first draft of the budget for next fiscal year. So it's going to start picking up, that the whole town meeting prep cycle and process is going to start ramping up here as we get to the new year. And I've been on the hot seat for long enough. We can move on from.
All right. Well, it won't be a long break because next is Citizens Forum. So, anyone has any comments? Anyone on the Zoom call have any comments or questions? Please unmute yourself, state your name and address, and your question or comment. See Dana Sheehan is unmuted.
Deborah Barnes, 37 Valley Road, and a butter to 30 Emerald Road. And I would like to have a conversation about what's going on at 30 Emerald Road and why there was a very quick pivot from a cease and desist, and you need to go to the ZBA. And 3 days later, the heavy equipment showed up and they went to town. And this permit is called new construction, and they're not being held to any of the new construction bylaws. The new construction is 4.5 feet from my property, so there's no setback. It's in a flood zone. They haven't had to comply with that. And no, there's no ratio compliance with building to the lot size. And so I would like to know, and a number of abutters are here, and we'd all like to have a conversation about what's going on. And sorry, Dana, I see that you put your hand up. I'm sorry, I butted in.
So, okay, Deborah, yeah, let's have a conversation, but, it is important that you know that zoning enforcement and issuing building permits is not a board of selectmen or town administrator role, but, we're all here, so, let's have a conversation. My understanding, I've mostly heard from neighbors like you and Dana in the last day or so about concerns about this, but is your contention, what is your contention, that they should not have a building permit, or you don't like the building permit? Or
There was, well, and other butters can jump in here. There was a cease and desist order from the building inspector.
I'm here, Bruce Marshall here,
Oh,
28 Emerald Road.
Okay, let's see if we can talk one at a time. So Deborah has the floor right now.
And so there was a cease and desist to the developer. You need to go to ZBA. And 3 days later, the building permit was issued and the development started. And so there was no ZBA. We have, and Bruce and Karen can talk more about it, but we've gone through the complaint situation, and there seems to be a whole lot of red tape. Bruce and Karen have paid $400 to the town to file with the ZBA. And it's very frustrating because the ZBA, we were on a call the other night, and they're not meeting again until mid-January. And by then, both houses will be up. And so Bruce or Karen or Dana, I'll let you guys jump in.
Mr. Chair, I have to mention, this is a ZBA matter. It really has nothing to do with the selectmen. The homeowners are going through the process. I looked at the application earlier today. I spoke to the ZBA chair earlier today, and she's looking at the packet they provided. So I don't really know where this conversation is going because there's nothing that someone can do.
Can I speak, Bruce Marshall?
Actually, this is Dana Sheehan, 40 Valley Road. Can I have the floor, please, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead, Dan. And then we'll take Bruce after you,
Okay.
Dan.
All right, sure. I'll keep it quick, but
Yep.
I respect what Mr. Script just mentioned about jurisdiction regarding these zoning matters. However, this is the executive branch of the government, so we would ask people in the neighborhood, the ask is for somebody on the Board of Selectmen to make a motion to direct the town administrator and the building inspector to suspend the building permit at 30 Emerald Road until after the Zoning Board of Appeals has a hearing and makes a decision. We are in opposition to the building permit at 30 Emerald Road for many reasons, such as it's non-compliant with the bylaws and it's going more non-compliant. There are problems with side setback. Deborah mentioned the rear setback problem. There's an increase in mass, so it's increasing in size and square footage and height, and there's not enough frontage. There are many other non-conforming problems with this project, such as insufficient parking and stormwater runoff, which have not been addressed in the building permit and the applications to date from what we can understand. So we would ask that one of the Board of Selectmen make such a motion in support of the strong neighborhood opposition to this very dense, controversial project that I can see from my front window. I can look over there now. It's looks like a 3-story project, over 40 feet. It's shaped like a shed. Doesn't look unlike a chicken coop, actually, a big one. But I'll leave that editorial comment to the side, and I'll stop my comments there and ask one of the Board of Selectmen to make such a motion to suspend the building permit until after the hearing.
Well, I won't prohibit.
Mr. Chair, the board does not have the power to do that.
Yeah.
Not only that, this was not on the agenda. To take a vote would be a double problem, especially since there was no notice given to the developer, whoever that person is. But
Yeah.
the takeaway is that the selectman has no power to direct the building inspector to do anything.
I'd like to respond to that. This is the executive branch of government. It's a political matter, and they can most certainly request that the building inspector suspend the building permit. This is not out of line.
Well, right, yeah, they can request anything, but they can't direct him to do anything. And again, this is not on the agenda, so to pass a motion on this
It
issue
is.
without it being on the agenda is
Hold it,
another
it
problem.
is on the agenda. It's there's an ADU discussion point on the agenda, and this is an ADU I'm looking at over there. It's 900 square feet.
So Dana, you and I talked about this earlier today, and I said I would check to see what the limits on our authority were. Both the Board of Selectmen and TA, if we had that, the authority to do that. So I did talk to Tony about this, and Tony talked to Dan, and the consensus was that you know, we don't have that authority. That's the ZBA, but so I just didn't want you to think that I said I'd look into something and I didn't. So I did look into it, and it doesn't seem from what town council is saying that we have the authority to do that.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate your comments there. And I would just finally say one more thing. You do have the authority, you have the influence, and you can ask that it be done. Maybe that's not really the direct authority, but there are significant problems with this development in the neighborhood, and we'd ask that you guys, that the Board of Selectmen would consider that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For this is Jane, for purposes of information only, that cease and desist that was issued, Dan, regardless of whether they broke it or not, is that still in effect, and for how long?
I don't know. I don't know anything about that. That's a bit of a surprise to me. So I can't speak intelligently to that. What I can say though,
there was a cease and desist on the demo permit. There wasn't a cease and desist on the construction permit.
okay, again, I haven't seen that paperwork. I'm not suggesting Dana's wrong by any means, but I just haven't seen it.
Point of fact, the building inspector sent a letter on November 4th, and the issue was to suspend or not grant the building permit because of 3 violations of zoning. That was on November 4th. I saw the document myself.
Right.
You guys should be aware of that. You guys should be aware of that one.
That's not a cease and desist, but appreciate the comment.
It rejected the building permit, Tony, and
it's not a cease and
referred them.
desist.
It referred them to the
Hey,
zoning board of appeals.
Yeah, it's not a cease and desist.
How about we let Bruce Marshall speak? Said we let him chime in.
Can I speak?
Yes, please.
I'm looking at a letter.
Sorry, Mr. Marshall, would you mind just stating your name and address for the record? It's just a requirement.
My name's Bruce Marshall. I'm at 28 Emerald Road. I'm looking at a letter that I got from the building inspector. And it says cease and desist order was issued on September 4th, 2024.
Yeah, that was Mr. Marshall. That was related to the demo permit.
That's right, but the issues that he had, 3 issues, proposed rear setback, proposed floor area increased from 49 to 55%, proposed use of main house, 2 units, where only 1 allowed. There was actually a special, you needed a special permit variance on 3 of these: floor ratio, rear setback. The building inspector didn't even address my 10-foot setback. I'm sorry I sound mad, but I am. I'm mad at all the officials up there at the top of the hill. And a special permit variance for single family. That means that he had to go before the zoning board with this cease and desist, before the cease and desist should have been allowed or stopped.
Here's, sorry.
There is so many bylaws that have been overlooked, just overlooked. It is unbelievable. And all the obstacles that the town of Nahant puts in front of a resident, that a voting resident, a budding resident, that I have to go through to get this before the zoning board. I shouldn't have to bring this before the zoning board. This should have been, who hired the building inspector? Can you answer me that simple question?
He's hired by the town, but
who is the boss?
It was 30 years ago.
Yeah. So here's what I think, Mr. Marshall. So, and Deborah and Dana and any other concerned neighbors. First of all, as has been established, it's not really our bailiwick, but you know, we like to do what we can for the residents. So it seems like you all know a lot more about this than, let's say, I do, and probably the others as well. I mean, this is just kind of brought to light recently with some emails received. So it makes sense. I think what it makes sense to me, and you guys can let me know what you think, is if we could put together a timeline and sort of like document the sequence of events here. You know, a permit applied for, denied for reason X, permit reapplied, you know, so everybody's looking at the facts and not speculating about whether a cease or desist thing was issued or whether it wasn't, and who went to what, and you know, why, what the rationale was. I you know, just based on observation, I know that the standard is, if there's a non-conforming lot, if you're staying on that footprint, and not decreasing your setbacks, that you're typically given a building permit. Now, I'm not defending that. I'm just saying that's what I've observed over many years living here in town. So from some of the comments, I think that might be a source of some of the concern. But you know, we're having a long conversation about something that frankly we're not very well informed in. Like to help the situation, but I think we got to start by understanding what really happened, and take it from there.
Josh, I think part of the problem here is that by the time, I think their concerns, I think Deborah mentioned it in the beginning, time is of the essence, because by the time you draft a list of concerns and reasons not to, the next zoning board meeting is when?
It's not been scheduled yet. It's not been scheduled.
Okay, so we don't even have it scheduled yet. So the likelihood of that building continuing and that property being completed is a real thing.
But
Yeah.
Gene.
Well,
May I say something here to Gene's point? The abutters were on the ZBA Zoom call a couple nights ago, and they were continuing some issues. And they were trying to figure out when the next time would be that they could meet. And with the holidays and with people going on vacation, they were saying that January 20th or 21st was the next time they could meet. So by then, a second house will be up, and the it's just this is a very frustrating situation. So much red tape, so many deadlines. You go to ZBA the other night where you can't be on until where you're not on the agenda, but you can't be on the agenda until it's been in the paper for 14 days. A couple days ago, last I knew, it was not even in the paper after the complaint was submitted. So it just seems impossible to see what the remedy is.
Josh,
Mr. Chair, to Mr. Marshall's point, the town isn't putting up any hurdles. This is state law. This is strictly Chapter 48 state law procedure. So this is not the town putting up hurdles. We're just following with the laws. And to Ms. Barnes' point, the dates and the numbers that she's seeing all comes from the statute. There are certain days that have to go by before a hearing can be had. And as I recall correctly, the application packet only got to the ZB on December 10th. So nothing could happen between then and now, for sure. And the last thing I say is, if those homeowners are still building that property with these issues outstanding, they do so at their own peril. Like we had it, this happened in Little Nahant, where the builder ended up having to tear down half or a big part of the house because he kept building despite there being a ZBA sort of pending issue. So if the ZBA can still find against them, and they'll have to tear down those buildings if the ZBA finds in favor of Mr. Barnes or Mr. Marshall, sorry.
Right. And Dan, you took the words out of my mouth. I mean, I wanted to make that point, for the residents who are frustrated with, the town hall and the process. As Dan mentioned, the process is determined by state law, and it's designed not to be political. It's designed to follow exactly the letter of the law and the local zoning law protections that you, the residents, vote on. And that's what the building inspector's job is to do, is to make sure that projects that come in have to adhere to those local laws, those local bylaws and code. So if I understand the neighborhood has concerns and claims of issues with the project that, may not be permittable, that has to go to the ZBA and has to go through the ZBA process. And if you are right, the owner will be the one, he's running the risk or she is running the risk, and they will have to make it right. Vice versa, if the town were to, make a political decision to force them to stop work, and it turns out that you're wrong and that it is permittable, then the town is liable for damages. So I understand the issue, and I understand, you're looking at it like, well, if we don't have this conversation sooner or later, he's going to keep building. We can't get in the middle of that process. It's got to go through the ZBA. If you're correct, he'll have to correct it. If you're incorrect, then it's permittable today and later. So we just have to go through that process.
Do we presuppose that the builder knows the risk he's facing?
I think he must know there's a ZBA appeal submitted. Is that, do we know if the builder knows of that?
Yeah, he would have gotten notice of that. He and all the abutters would have gotten notice of that appeal.
Hey, what?
He and the abutters would have gotten all notice of that appeal. So he does have notice, or he will if he doesn't have it already.
He will have, yeah, it may not have gone out yet, but I'm sure he's aware. I'm sure he's aware of it. And just so you know, like it's certainly not something that, it's on our radar. We know we've heard from you guys. We've had a lot of folks come into the town hall. We've had a lot of emails, concerns, and it's definitely on our radar. But as Dan mentioned, we can't really get we don't have a role to be involved. It's got to go through the ZBA process.
Well, if I can speak,
Yeah, go ahead.
Bruce Marshall, 28 Emerald Road. I'm still looking at this letter from the building inspector on October 31st. And there is still 3 special permit variances he needed, which means that it should have gone before the zoning board. Something's gone wrong.
I
don't
think,
know where, but there is 3 special permit variances, which
Bruce,
means it has to go before the zoning board.
I think, and again, I think you'll probably get more information about that through the ZBA process. But
Can I
my
butt
understanding,
in here for a minute?
my understanding is that the original design or the original application, you know, called for those, but the design of what's being built was altered to avoid those problems, so that they are complying with zoning that's permittable versus trying to do something that requires a special variance. So I think you're going to get a lot of that information through the ZBA process.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Please let Tony talk,
Chairman?
and then you'll have a turn.
Yeah, well, I just, hopefully I answered Mr.
Yeah,
Marshall.
I just want to add that, you know, we're having a long discussion now about things that A, we don't have authority over, but more importantly, B, we don't have the information. So we're being told information in snippet form. You know, it's really not fair to continue this until
I have one thing.
at least until tomorrow, when we, you know, can like look at the sequence of events and say, okay, here's what happened. This is not apathy. I walked down there today after receiving and looked at it myself, and I can tell you that they are continuing to work. So this is not apathy or putting you guys off, but you know, we can't operate on, you know, hearsay. So
Can I speak?
Can I speak? Can I speak, please?
let's let Bruce say one last thing, and then we'll switch to you, iPhone Tech.
Okay.
I'm still looking at the letter from your building inspector and my building inspector.
Yeah.
It says rear, the required allowance, 20 foot, existing 4.4 inches. And you need a special permit variance, action necessary, special permit variance. And that
So-
says it all right there.
Yeah, so you're helping to prove my point that
What I'm
you know, we don't
saying-
have the
what I'm saying-
information, Mr. Marshall, so
I thought I had, do I have the floor?
not indefinitely.
Oh, God. But that one right there says that it should have gone before the zoning board.
Okay.
Yeah, if in generally speaking, Mr. Marshall, if the applicant continued to pursue that element of a design, then yes. But the applicant also has the opportunity to eliminate that element of the design that requires a special variance. What we don't know, and what the chairman's trying to say, is all that information, what you're working off of, what the inspector was working off of, we're not involved in the process. We don't have those details. So I'm kind of giving you a general answer because we don't have that, but you will get those answers through the ZBA process.
All right, iPhone Tech.
Yeah, okay. It's Francis Burrill, Enzo, 28 Sunset Road. Let me ask you a question, Tony. Did the applicant fulfill the cease and desist order?
I don't know.
Well, again, then why is he continuing? If he doesn't fulfill what he did wrong, which he did, there was a cease and desist. then he should have stopped right there. And I disagree with the Board of Selectmen. You're the building inspector's boss, and you have every right to call him in and question him about this.
Yeah,
You're
Like
his
you said,
boss.
it's
You
not-
hire him. He's not appointed
I don't
by
think we
anybody
have
else other
said
than the
that
Board
we
of
won't.
Selectmen. Okay, so let me ask you. I'll ask you again, Tony. You don't know. You have no idea that he fulfilled the cease and desist.
what, yeah, let me put it this way. The cease and desist was on the demo permit.
Oh,
The
then
demo
stop.
permit-
Then okay. Then he demoed it.
Yeah,
He did it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Did he fulfill his obligation on the cease and desist?
I don't know. I don't know what the
Well, then there you
obligation
go.
was.
Then he should stop. You should make him stop. The building inspector should make him stop, period. And you are his boss. You are the building inspector's boss.
Thank you, Enzo. If
Oh,
he
great.
didn't fulfill.
Well, Tony, don't thank me. I'm asking you if he fulfilled his obligation
So
to the demo.
Do you
And he
know? Okay, so do you know if he did or didn't?
No, I know. I don't know. I'm asking you.
Okay,
You're
so
the
then
Board
don't
of
tell
Selectmen and
me.
you're
So
the
then
town
don't
administrator.
suggest to
You
me.
should be able to. You
So
should be
then
able
don't
to answer that
suggest to me
question
what
for
the-
these people.
so
You
then
can't
don't-
answer it.
All right, excuse me, can we,
Hey,
Tony and
I
Enzo,
don't
can we
know.
stop for a second?
Well, then
I
why
think
don't you
we
find
really
out?
need to speak to
Can
the
we stop for a
building
second here?
directly.
So clearly, we're talking about something that A, was not on the agenda, and B, we're not fully informed on. So I'd like to.
Again, I don't like
get
to
us-
get angry,
I'd like-
but I'm just telling you, if he don't fulfill it, Josh, if he didn't fulfill his obligation,
Yeah.
then there's a hole in the system. You got to stop him. You got to say you can't go any further. You didn't do it
Yeah.
right, and start the process all over again.
Yep, so that's why we gotta get, I'm educated.
And this is not
And
a
what happened.
ZBA thing. This is the Board of Selectmen, and this is the building inspector. You should call him in and say, why did you give him a permit? Okay, whatever. And you gave him a cease and desist on the demolition. Did he fulfill it? None of you know.
That's right.
There's
There's
something wrong there.
no reason for us to know, but we're gonna
There's no
find out,
reason.
so.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Rob, were you trying to say something?
No,
Rob?
so much of this, I think, is stemming back to your earlier suggestion that we have a timeline. And that timeline should be assembled by the building inspector. It shouldn't take too long to do. It will
No.
give us a strong indication of how we got to where we are. And we should be able to answer all these questions.
Yep, that's what we have to do. We can't.
I just to add to that, the building inspector will be producing that for the ZBA meeting. That's where the building inspector will provide that information. As you can tell, going down that road in this forum is opening the door for us to get into a conversation that we should not be having because we don't have a role and a responsibility through this process. So I agree with you. And he will do that. He will have to answer to the questions and concerns of the neighbors, but it's got to go through the ZBA process. It can't become a political conversation. That's how communities get into legal trouble. And if there is an issue with what's happening on that property and the ZBA determines that it shouldn't have been permitted, it will have to be fixed.
Yep.
I have a question. May I?
Yeah, I think, Deborah, just so we can
Yep.
be fair to everyone, let's go through the other folks and then can circle back to you.
Okay.
So I saw
Mr.
George
Chair, I gotta
Nolan.
say, this was not on the agenda, Mr. Chair, and I really, as legal counsel, getting really nervous about how deep we're going into this issue, honestly. This,
I
this-
agree, Dan.
So
We're really
maybe
on
George wants
shaky
to talk
ground.
about something else, because I do admit that this has sort of run its course to the extent of the knowledge on hand right now. So go ahead, George Mahoven.
Yes, good evening, George Mahoven, 64 Lennox Road, Nahant. I'm just calling to ask Tony about the crosswalk down on Wilson Road where the public stairs are. He said that they were gonna do it sometime in late October, November, and now we're running into January and nothing's been done. So we're gonna wait until the weather breaks, or what's the plan?
No, I asked Zach to work on that once the paving was completed, which was just recently. So I'll just check in with him to see what his plan is on schedule, but it's going in.
Okay, thank you. Merry Christmas.
Welcome. Merry Christmas.
George, Kevin McCarthy.
Hey folks, Kevin McCarthy, 12 Linda Lane. And Tony, I guess this one's for you too. You've been on the hot seat. This isn't a tough one, I promise. You've mentioned earlier about the paving in Little Nahant, and I'm a Linda Lane resident, and of course my street was one of those streets that's been paved. And you indicated the job was completed, and probably completed the way it was intended to be by whoever decided this. But half the street's been completed. So in other words, it's a strip going up the right-hand side has been repaved. But the left-hand side of the street heading up is, and the same as for Burby Road, is really deteriorating and sort of crumbling where the new patch meets the old. And I just wondered if there is a plan to repave the entire street as opposed to just that one strip on the Little Nahant roads.
Right. So thank you, Kevin. We do have a paving plan. I'd have to look at when Linda Lane is scheduled in that plan, although, that assessment was done prior to this most recent patch paving. The reason it was done the way it was is because National Grid, it was part of their, requirements of their permit. If they were going to open the street, that we were going to require that they, repair to a 6-foot, I think it's a 6-foot wide patch. So it actually, that paving work is not paid for, out of town funds, but actually paid for by National Grid as a repair to the work that they did. So I'd have to look at the paving plan and see where, that Linda Lane was scheduled, and then see how we adjust that based on the current state of it.
Sure. I thank you for the answer. It was just it was a curiosity of mine. And have a happy holiday, all of you.
You're welcome. You too.
Tony Jean, I'm glad he brought that up. I've had people ask me, is that half pave going to turn into full pave?
Well, Emerald Road is planned. Emerald Road has been on the schedule for a spring curb to curb repavement for a couple years. So the patch job on Emerald Road, National Grid was responsible for that work. So it was in such bad shape. I was fine. I was happy to push National Grid to come in and make the fix. But really, you want to let those trenches settle through a winter season before you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a full repave. So the plan is to do curb to curb on Emerald in the spring.
Great, thank you. And is the same with like Linda Lane?
No, Linda Lane, I don't think Linda Lane was on the schedule for the spring. But we'll have to take a look at it. I don't know where it was on the pavement plan off the top of my head.
All right, we can look at that as spring approaches.
Right, anyone else before we go back to Deborah? Didn't forget about you, Deborah. I don't see anyone else, so go ahead.
Okay, simple question. I have always been told that in order to not have to go along with new construction bylaws, you needed to either keep one wall in place, or this demolition the permit was to go down to the studs. And this developer did not do that. He raised everything. So that is why the neighbors think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this now is called new construction. And actually the permit says new construction. So what confuses me is, as it is now new construction, why would it not be subject to all the bylaws and FEMA requirements and wetlands and setbacks that any new construction has to abide by?
Mr. Chair, I'll mention you that you've already moved on from this topic, and I really advise against reopening this door.
Yeah, I guess I'll just say, I'd correct you if I knew if you were wrong or not, but I don't, and so yeah, we have to look into it more. So I think as town council suggests, we'll wrap up this conversation for this evening.
Deborah, you've got some great questions, and unfortunately, we don't have the answers for you. Hopefully, we're going to get those.
Thank you, Gene. It seems nobody has the answers, and that's what's really frustrating.
Yes, it is. I'm sure it is.
I guess it would be helpful when you say, I'm running into roadblocks and red tape, like as in your email, but that's not specific enough for me to, it's not an actionable comment. So please, you know, if you're having a specific issue, you know, say what the specific issue is rather than generalities. All right, anything else? Don't see anyone else's hand up, and so I think we are having an executive session this evening, so I'll make a motion. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to adjourn to executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Paragraph 21, 3A, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, Northeastern University Marine Science Center, 430 Nahant Road, Nahant, to discuss pending litigation strategy regarding Christian Howard versus Town of Nahant, a matter pending in the Essex Superior Court. If the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, and I, the chair, do declare that an open meeting will have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, and we will not return to open session. I have a second.
Second.
Okay,
That's a third.
motion's been seconded and thirded. Roll call vote.
Jane Canty, aye.
Rob Tibble, aye.
Josh Antrim, aye. Thank you all. We're going into executive session, so we have to say good night.
Good night, all. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Yep, same.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Anybody home?
Yeah, just hold on, let me get this set up.